अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवंश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवम् साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादे पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंशाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Hare Krishna. Welcome back to our Bhagavad Gita study series, and we are at this moment studying a very important chapter, that is chapter 15, Purushottama Yoga. And as we discussed in our previous class, the introduction to this chapter, and we came to know that this chapter is actually the essence of this whole scripture. And not only that, it is the essence of the entire Vedas. Because we know that Upanishads are the essence of all the Vedas, and Bhagavad Gita is the essence of all Upanishads. And if this chapter 15 is the essence of the whole scripture Bhagavad Gita, then it is implied that it is the essence of all the Vedas. And we discussed, based on certain points, that how this particular chapter is the essence of the whole Vedas. And as we will study today, learning verse by verse, in a disciplined manner as we do for all the chapters, it will be even more clear to us. So, first we will see that In the previous chapter, that is in chapter 14, in the last two verses, verse 26 and 27, as Bhagavan said that Mamcha yo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate, and brahmano hi pratisthaham amritasya avyayasya cha shashvatasya cha dharmasya sukhasya kantikasya cha. So, as we see, Bhagavan said that one who engages himself in unadulterated devotional service can transcend all the modes of material nature, that is the gunas, and thus they come to the level of Brahman. Brahma bhuyaya kalpate. And by the worship, by the unadulterated worship of Bhagavan Krishna, one can come to the level of Brahman. The reason also Bhagavan gave in the exactly next verse, that is verse number 27, where Bhagavan said that Brahmano hi pratishthaha. So I am the shelter of Brahma Jyoti, Brahman. And we discussed about how he is the Bhagavan is the condensed form of Brahman. As Bhagavan said that Ghani Bhuta Brahmaiva Yatha Ghani Bhuta Prakasha Eva Surya Mandala Tadvat. So we discussed all these things. So this is the knowledge. Now, so we have understood that by worshipping the Lord, we can transcend the three modes of material nature, and we can actually go beyond this circle of birth and death. But after knowing that also, why people are unable to do this? So Bhagavan gives the reason also here in this chapter, in chapter 15. You see? So this is the link between these two chapters. As Bhagavan starts with the reason of this attachment to this material world, which is actually preventing us to worship the Lord and to acquire the knowledge required to go beyond this material bondage. So we will start with the first verse of this chapter, chapter 15. It's a beautiful verse. Can you see? Okay. Shri Bhagavanuvacha Urdhvamūlamadhashakham Ashvatham Prahuravyayam Chandansi Yasya Parnani Yastam Veda Savedavid. Okay. So just a minute. We'll go to the synonyms. Shri Bhagavanuvacha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Urdhva Moolam, with roots above, Adhaha, downwards, Shakham, branches, Ashwatham, a banyan tree, Prahuhu is said, Avyayam, eternal, Chandamsi, the Vedic hymns, Yasya, of which, Paranani, the leaves, Yaha, anyone who, Tam, that, Veda, knows, Saha, he, Vedavid, the knower of the Vedas. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is said that there is an imperishable banyan tree that has its roots upward and its branches down, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas. So very beautiful. So we see that, as we just said, Bhagavan is giving the reason of our attachment in this verse, and also in the next verse, that is the description of the banyan tree. We will read that verse also, and then we'll try to see it in a deeper way. अधश्चूर्ध्वं प्रसृतास्तस्य शाखा गुणप्रवृद्धा विषयप्रवालाः अधश्च मूलान्यनुसन्ततानि कर्मानुबन्धीनि मनुष्यलोके. अधः downward, cha and urdhvam upward, prasritaha extended, tasya its, shakhaha branches, guna by the modes of material nature, pravriddhaha developed, vishaya sense objects, pravalaha twigs, adhaha downward, cha and mulani roots, anusantatani extended, karma to work, anubandhini bound, manushya loke in the world of human society. Translation. The branches of this tree extend downward and upward, nourished by the three modes of material nature. The twigs are the objects of the senses. This tree also has roots going down, and these are bound to the fruitive actions of human society. So we see Bhagavan is describing the Ashwatha tree, the banyan tree here in this verse. In the first verse, he starts telling about this Ashwatha tree, banyan tree, Ashwatha vrikshaha, and he continues in the second verse also. And then in the next two verses, he will be telling how to cut off the detachment, attachment, and to be detached. Now we see this is the first 6 verses. This is the first section where Bhagavan is actually telling us about the material bondage and also how to get detached by this metaphor of this banyan tree. Now, it is that we will understand that detachment is the key But how to attain it, that also he will tell. And first, I will give the outline also of this chapter, which I forgot to give in the beginning. So this is the first section that starts from verse number 1 to verse number 6. And then the second till verse number 11, it is the transmigration of the soul, its reason, and also the way to come out of this, the way to liberation also, we can say. And the next, that is 12 to 15, is the position of Krishna as the maintainer of this whole creation, Purushottama Krishna. And then in the last section, 16 to 20, specifically in the three shlokas, that is 16, 17, and 18, the exact identity of the Purushottama is revealed. And this is actually the essence of the Vedanta Sutras. So actually we can say from 12 to 20 is the description of the Purushottama, particularly in 3 shlokas. Anyway, so we will start to see this banyan tree, what Bhagavan described in these 2 verses, which we just read. That is verse 1 and verse 2. So, Bhagavan says that Urdhva Moolam Adhashakam Ashwatham Prahurabhyayam. So this eternal tree is an upside down banyan tree, which represents the material world. Now we see that in this material world, we have experience of seeing this upside down tree sometimes when we see a reflection of any tree, in any water body, maybe in pond or lake. So Bhagavan says that there is a banyan tree in the spiritual world, and in the material world, there is a reflection of this tree. And that is why, because it is reflection, so it is upside down. So why this comparison of this banyan tree? That is, we see people who are engaged in fruitive activities in this material world. We all are almost. So there is no end to this banyan tree. So when we are engaged in fruitive activities, there is no end to this tree, this banyan tree. It's very deep-rooted. It is very, very deep-rooted. So the jivas wander from one branch to another endlessly. We see this ashwatham, this particular word, means which will not stay till tomorrow. Shwatha means which will stay till tomorrow, and ashwatha means which will not stay till tomorrow. So it also gives an idea about the temporary nature of this material world. So, urdhva moolam adhashakham ashwatham prahuravvyayam. It is avyayam in the spiritual world, that is eternal in the spiritual world. And as the material world is a reflection of the spiritual world, in that way it can also be considered as avyayam, though its form will be changed. And then Bhagavan describes that the different parts of this tree represents that represent different themes of this material world. Like we see, Bhagavan says, Chandamsi yasya paranani. So whose leaves are chandas, Vedic hymns. This particular word, Vedic hymns, actually indicates to those Vedic statements which motivate us to get attached to the ritualistic part, which most of the people follow. So the ritualistic part of Vedas give an impetus to the general people to get engaged in the ritualistic ceremony and all these things. And due to this, people, that is a jiva, wanders from branch to branch, from twig to twig, and then what happens? He finds no way to come out of this tree, that is this material world. Like, see, as we just said, this entire material world is compared with this entire tree. And the root is actually the topmost planet of this material world, that is Brahmaloka or Satyaloka, because it is upside down. So if we go to the root, it is situated in Brahmaloka or Satyaloka. The branches are both upper and lower branches. They are 14 planetary systems. In the upper planetary systems, the superior beings are situated like Devas, Kinnaras, Gandharvas. And in the lower, we, the human beings, then different animals, other species are there. So, then the green leaves, as we just said, they are the Vedic hymns, that is the ritualistic part. And then the twigs are the sense objects, the objects of the senses. And the tip of branches, they are the senses. The fruits are the karma. And the secondary roots, they are the impression caused by attraction and repulsion, or we can say the tendency towards piety and impiety. Though the result of pious and impious acts, we know the results are temporary, but still people are attracted to this due to the words given in the Vedas, the ritualistic part of the Vedas. Pushpitam vachaham, as it is said in the earlier. So Bhagavan suggested Arjuna not to get attracted to the flowery words of the Vedas. So this is the comparison that we can see with the material world and this banyan tree, this upside down banyan tree. Now, actually, we see the basic purpose of the Vedic hymns is to elevate oneself gradually from the conditioning of this material world to the spiritual life. So, why we have to understand this tree of illusion? Because to get out of this conditioned stage, once we understand this elusive tree, we will be able to get out of this condition. And Bhagwan will say in the next 2 verses, why is it necessary? Prior to that, we will see that in the next, okay. Yes. So we say this is the samsara vriksha also we can say, as it is the material, representing the material world. So in the 3rd verse also, the power of detachment we will get in the 3rd verse. Okay, so let us chant that first. As we said in the very beginning, that power of detachment. So we will read these 2 verses together. न रूपमस्येह तथोपलभ्यते नान्तो न चादिर्न च सम्प्रतिष्ठा अश्वत्थमेनं सुविरूढमूलम् असङ्गशस्त्रेण दृढेन चित्वा. And the next also. ततः पदं तत्परिमार्गितव्यं यस्मिन् गत्वा नानिवर्तन्ति भूयः तमेव चाद्यं पुरुषं प्रपद्ये यतः प्रवृत्तिः प्रसृता पुराणी. Synonyms. Na, not. Rupam, the form. Asya, of this tree. Iha, in this world. Tatha, also. Upalabhyate, can be perceived. Na, never. Antaha, ain't. Na, never. Cha, also. Adihi, beginning. Na, never. Cha, also. Sampratishtha, the foundation. Ashwatham, banyan tree. Enam, this. Suvirudha, strongly. Moolam, rooted. Asanga shastrena, by the weapon of detachment. Dridhena, strong. Chitva, cutting. Tataha, thereafter. Padam, situation. Tat, that. Parimargitavyam, has to be searched out. Yasmin, where. Gataha, going. Na, never. Nivartanti, they come back. Bhuyaha, again. Tam, to him. Eva, certainly. Cha, also. Adyam, original. Purusham, the personality of Godhead. Prapadye, surrender. Yataha, from whom. pravrittihi, the beginning, prasrita, extended, purani, very old. Translation: the real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundation is. But with determination, one must cut down this strongly rooted tree with the weapon of detachment. Thereafter, one must seek that place from which, having gone, one never returns, and there surrender to that Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom everything began and from whom everything has extended since time immemorial. So we see this particular word, asanga shastrena drahena chitva. So here Bhagavan wants to tell, I have given you the picture of this upside down banyan tree, which represents the material world, which resembles the nature of this material world. So it is difficult to find out the root, but it is not impossible. So first you have to find out the root, then you have to cut the root by weapon of detachment. The real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. It is not easy to understand. So then take shelter of Krishna, Guru, and Scripture. Seek the eternal abode. What Bhagavan is saying in these two verses, I am just giving the points. Then surrender to the Supreme Person, who is the beginning of everything. So these are the 5 basic points that we will discuss in these 2 verses. So as it is said in the translation also, the real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, and where its foundation is. So can the real form of this tree be perceived at all? No, but why? Because there are a great variety of opinions regarding the nature of this material world. Some people say the world is real, some say the world is false, some say the world is eternal, some say no. So one cannot understand its end or beginning. As it is said, Nanto nachadirna nacham sampratishta. Sorry. So it seems unlimited. Na anta nacha sorry. Na antah na cha adihi na cha sampratishta. So it seems unlimited. So Baladeva Vidya Bhushana, our Acharya, he says that not understood how to destroy the network of desires. It is actually not possible for us. One cannot understand its shelter or support, that is sampratishta, because it seems to have no beginning. Why? Because of the lack of real knowledge. We cannot perceive it. As Bhagavan says that it is not perceived, it is actually within bracket, it is implied that it is not easily perceived. it can only be perceived by certain knowledge. So it is not understood that its destruction can be, destruction is possible, and that it is based on gunas, this tree. The destruction of this tree is possible, and it is based on the three gunas. Similarly, it is not perceived that attachment to the gunas alone is the beginning of this tree. This tree, as we see, when we see a reflection of a tree in a water body, the tree is actually situated in the bank of a river. But when we see the reflection in the water of the river, so what is the basis of that experience that we see, that reflected tree? That actually it is the water of the river that is the basis, or that alone is responsible for the existence of that reflected tree. So the water of the river is the only reason of our experience of that reflected tree. Likewise, the three gunas, sattva, rajas, tamas, they alone is the basis of this tree. And as water is required for a tree to get nourishment, so this tree, this ashwatha tree, gets all its nourishment from the gunas only. From the gunas. So we see, again he says that tatha asya gunasanga eva adihi iti na upalabhyate. So it is not perceived that attachment to the gunas alone is the beginning of this tree, he says. And then again, it is not perceived that the basis of the tree is founded on ignorance, which is the misconception of self as not-self. As Ramanujacharya says, that we can't perceive this because of our ignorance, ajnana. And ignorance alone is the basis of this tree. So ignorance, as well as we see that ignorance, that is ajnana, we don't understand that reflection is not the reality. But as the reflection is there must be something which is real. As we can see the reflection in the water, there must be an original tree there in the bank. But at the same time, if we take the reflected tree as the real one, it is due to our ignorance. But the basis is also, it's definitely ignorance, as well as water. That is our very existence, the existence of this, that is jiva. So we see, and our bondage. So ignorance alone is the basis of the tree, as you said. Since it is alone the tree is fixed. So the tree is fixed in the ignorance. Tasya pratishtha cha anatmani atma abhimana rupam ajnanam iti na upalabhyate pratitishthati asmin eva iti hi ajnanam eva asya pratishtha. So both Baladeva Vidyabhushana and Ramanujacharya ji, says that all that is understood is I am a human, the son of Yajnadatta. It is just an example, the father of Devadatta. I do my actions according to that identity and experience happiness and suffering. I am living in this province, in this village. So this is the false identity that we have. We say, I am the daughter of so and so, son of so and so. We stay here. I belong to that caste and creed, that village, that nation, etc., etc. So that is the ignorance of a jiva. And due to that ignorance only, this Ashwatha Vriksha exists. And they are nourished by the gunas. So we see that so if it is difficult to find the root of this tree, so how can you do it? So it is possible by reverse logistics. Like, I am the son of my father. My father is the son of my grandfather. So in this way, if we go up and up, so by searching, one comes to, we will be able to come to Brahmaji. That is the first living entity who is generated by the Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. And finally, in this way, we will reach the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the end of the whole search process. And it is possible by associating with those people who are in perfect knowledge, who know this. So, this is the only way. And for that, we see Bhagavan says that Tatah padam tat parimargitavyam yasmin gatva na nivartanti bhuyah. So what will happen if we find the root? Then we will cut the root by asanga shastrain, dridhena chitva. With strong determination, we will have to cut the root of this tree. So it is possible when we take shelter of spiritual master and we associate with the people who are in perfect knowledge, as we just mentioned. So, as here Bhagavan says, Tatah padam tat parimargitavyam, in the next verse. Yasmin gatta na nivartanti bhuyah. Tameva chadyam purusham prapadye yatah pravrittihi prasrita purani. So, yasmin gataha na nivartanti bhuyah. So there is the eternal abode. By going there, no one returns to this material. And for that matter, we have to surrender to the Supreme Personality, who is the beginning of all. Who is the beginning of all. As Bhagavan said, we know Sarvasya Chaham Hridisannivishto. He will say in the next verses. But he said that Aham Sarvasya Prabhavaha Matta Sarvam Pravartate. It is in 10th chapter, 10th. And then he said that Devī Hesha Gunamayi Mama Maya Duratyaya Mamevaya Prapadyanti Maya Metam Taranti. So when we have to cut the bonding of this material world, we must have to take shelter of Bhagavan. And okay, we will have to read the next two verses also to understand the whole thing. Okay, this purport I'm just reading before going to this. It is now clearly stated that the real form of this banyan tree cannot be understood in this material world, since the root is upwards. The extension of the real tree is at the other end. When entangled with the material expansions of the tree, one cannot see how far the tree extends, nor can one see the beginning of this tree. Yet one has to find out the cause, that is, I am the son of my father, as we just said. So the word asanga is very important in this connection, because the attachment of sense enjoyment and lording it over the material nature is very strong. Asanga shastrena. So that asanga means detachment, the sword of detachment, asanga shastrena means. Therefore, one must learn detachment by discussion of spiritual science based on authoritative scriptures, and one must hear from persons who are actually in knowledge. So, as Bhagavan says, that this tree can only be destroyed by the sword of detachment. So with strong determination, you have to take that sword of detachment and have to cut from the root. So for that matter, you have to take shelter of spiritual master and the people who are in knowledge, and from them you have to hear properly, you have to have faith on their words. And then you find a root, and it will be easy for you to cut by that attach. So by the detachment. So that detachment is developed also by surrendering at the feet of the spiritual master, and by associating with the people who are already detached, who already have detached themselves from this material world, and who have found that root, and who have cut it also, the tree of material nature. That is the conditioning, that is the bondage of gunas. All these things they have cut. So, and their qualities will be described actually in a proper order in the next verse. And we see in the previous two, in the previous verses, previous chapters, that is in 12th chapter, Bhagavan gave some important qualities of a bhakta, a devotee. And in chapter 13, Bhagavan enlisted some qualities of a person who is in perfect knowledge. That is, as he said, amanitvam, adamhitvam, ahimsa, kshanti, rajavam, acharyopasanam, shauryam, stairyam, atma vinigraham. So, indriyartheshu vairagyam, anahankara evacha, janma mrityu jara vyadi, dukkha doshanu darshanam. So, all this. And in 12th chapter also, Bhagavan describes about adveshta sarvabhutana, maitrah karuna evacha, nirmamo nirahankaraha, samadukha sukhakshanhu. So now we see where Bhagavan is stating here. He will give a few qualities here in this verse. He says, Nirmana moha jita sanga dosha adhyatma nitya vinivritta kamaha dvandvair vimuktva sukha dukkha sangair gacchantya mudha padamavyayam tat. Nihi, without, mana, false prestige, mohaha and illusion, jita having conquered, sangha of association, doshaha the false, adhyatma in spiritual knowledge, nityaha in eternity, vinivritta disassociated, kamaha from lust, dvandvaihi from the dualities, vimuktaha liberated, sukha dukkha happiness and distress, samgnaihi named, gacchanti attain, amudhaha unbewildered, padam situation, avyayam eternal, tat that. Translation: those who are free from false prestige, illusion, and false association, who understand the eternal, who are done with material lust, who are freed from the dualities of happiness and distress, and who, unbewildered, know how to surrender unto the Supreme Person, attain to that eternal kingdom. So as Bhagavan just said in the previous verse, Yasmin gata na nivartanti bhuyaha. So tataha padam tat parimargitavyam yasmin gata na nivartanti bhuyaha. So that place from where no one returns. And here also Bhagavan says, amudhaha, the unbewildered, rich, that situation eternally, that eternal kingdom they attain. So we see that nirmana moha, means who is free from false prestige. Nihi mana moha, who has no false prestige that I am this, I am that. So I must have this or that. Mana and moha. So moha means illusion. So nihi mana moha. Mana means a false prestige and moha means illusion. So both, they are freed from both. No mana and no moha. Freed from mana, freed from moha. That is from false prestige and from illusion. Now, Jita Sangha Dosha. Jita Sangha Dosha means who is free from false association. When a person is in full knowledge, as we know, Aratir, Jana Samsadi, all these things we learned about when we were learning about the Bhaktas and the Jnanis. So, they can live alone. No Sangha Dosha. They are not desperate in search of association. Jita Sangha Dosha, because they are Atma Rama. And as it is said that Adhyatma Nitya, that is, they understand the eternal. And Vinivritta Kamaha. So they have completely conquered material lust. Dvandver Vimukta, they are completely free from duality. Duality of pleasure and pain. and they are unbewildered. Amudhaha. So, okay, I will read this purport. The surrendering process is described here very nicely. The first qualification is that one should not be deluded by pride. So, as Bhagavan said, that to get that abode, you have to surrender to that Supreme Person, Purushottam, and the qualities that you have to acquire. So the first qualification is that one should not be deluded by pride, because the conditioned soul is puffed up, thinking himself the lord of material nature. It is very difficult for him to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should know by the cultivation of real knowledge that he is not lord of material nature. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Lord. When one is free from this delusion caused by pride, he can begin the process of surrender. For one who is always expecting some honor in this material world, it is not possible to surrender to the Supreme Person. Pride is due to illusion. For although one comes here, stays for a brief time, and then goes away, he has the foolish notion that he is the Lord of the world. He thus makes all things complicated and is always in trouble. The whole world moves under this impression. People are considering the land, this earth, to belong to human society, and they have divided the land under the false impression that they are the proprietors. One has to get out of this false notion that human society is the proprietor of this world. When one is freed from such a false notion, he becomes free from all the false associations caused by familial, social, and national affections. These faulty associations bind one to this material world. After this stage, one has to develop spiritual knowledge. One has to cultivate knowledge of what is actually his own and what is actually not his own. And when one has an understanding of things as they are, he becomes free from all dual conceptions such as happiness and distress, pleasure and pain. He becomes full in knowledge. Then it is possible for him to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, Jita Sangha Dosha. The desire of getting associated with your family, with the society, community, like this. And as it is mentioned here very beautifully, that pride is due to illusion. If we are in knowledge, there cannot be any pride. Because then we know about our existence. This small existence, this temporary existence, just for a few years we have come in this body. We will stay here for a while and then we will transmigrate to another body. So there is no reason to get attached to this material body and the things associated with this material body. But we do the same mistake from birth after birth. And that's why we are still conditioned in this material world. And Bhagavan says that when one can surrender to the Lord. He can reach that platform, that abode from which he will never return. And he also gives the description of that abode in the next verse. What kind of a place is it? न तद् भासयते सूर्यो न शशाङ्को न पावकः यद्गत्वा न निवर्तन्ते तद्धाम परमं मम. No, not that. Bhasayate illuminates. Suryaha, the sun. Na, nor. Shashankaha, the moon. Na, nor. Pavakaha, fire or electricity. Yat, where. Gatva, going. Na, never. Nivartante, they come back. Tadhama, that abode. Paramam, supreme. Mama, my. Translation. That supreme abode of mine is not illuminated by the sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world. So this last word of the second line, the fourth pada, is very important. Tadhama paramam mama. We can get different commentaries on Bhagavad Gita, where this chapter is described in a very different way. But if we read the shlokas properly, then we can easily understand what the Lord wants to say. 3, 4, 5, 6. I will read these 4 verses again. Na rupam asyeha tathopalabhyate. Nanto na chadirna na cha sampratishtha. Ashvatthamenam suvirudha moolam asanga shastrena dridhena chitva. Till this, that is 1, 2, 3, these 3 verses, Bhagavan describes about the nature of this Ashvattha Vriksha. And he also says that this is an illusory tree and you have to cut it by the strong determination and with the sword of detachment, Vairagya. And then Bhagavan says how you will get that Vairagya. For that Vairagya, you have to surrender somewhere. You have to surrender yourself to something. And Bhagavan says, Tatah padam tat parimargitavyam yasmin gattana nivartanti bhuyaha tameva chadyam purusham prapadye yata pravriti prasrita purana. So here in this verse, Bhagavan is not indicating directly that that person is he himself, which he will disclose in the later verse. But here, as it is not mentioned directly in this verse, so people misinterpret it very easily. That you and that Supreme is one. So you will become one with that Supreme. But actually it is not. That's why in the 6th verse, Bhagavan clearly states that natad bhasayate suryo na shashanko na pavakaha yadgatva na nivartante tat thama param. So Arjuna, do you want to know how my abode looks like? My abode. Then he immediately takes his own position. Now he was talking third person, but now first person. Asmat Shabda Rupam here again. Bhagavan says, Arjuna, my abode is such that it is self-illuminated. There is no requirement of sun and moon or any other thing to illumine that abode. as it is needed here in the other planets. And it is such a place, by going there, people never return. Yad gatva na nivartante tad dham param. Who reach there, they never return. This particular word he says twice here. Yasmin gata na nivartanti puya. First in verse 4, having gone, one never returns. And here also he says, who reach it never return to this material world. Na nivartante. Yat gatva na nivartante. Tad dham param. So that is my eternal abode, O Arjuna. That is my eternal abode. In the 4th verse, he said, there is some eternal abode, and there is the primeval person who lives there. And in a minute, he disclosed that that is actually my abode. I am the Supreme Person. And just these are the few qualities a person requires to reach that. Nirmana moha, that is no false prestige, no illusion. Chitta santa dosha, no desire for associating with people. Just identifying yourself with the family, community, etc. Adhyatma nitya vinivritta kamaha. So who understand the eternity, who have conquered all material lust, who is free from duality, dvandvair vimuktaha, like pleasure and pain, darkness and light, etc. And amodha, that is unbewildered. So I will read a short portion from this purport. The words paramam mama are very important here. I'll just give the words of Srila Prabhupada for you all. Actually, every nook and corner is the property of the Supreme Lord, Ishavasya Idam Sat. But spiritual world is Paramam, full of 6 opulences. The Kathopanishad 2.2.15 also confirms that in the spiritual world there is no need of sunshine, moonshine, and or stars. Na tatra suryo bhati, na chandra tarakam. It is said in Kathopanishad. For the whole spiritual sky is illuminated by the internal potency of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Abode can be achieved only by surrender and by no other means. So as Bhagavan says in this whole section, what we learned actually, that Bhagavan starts in the mood that, O Arjuna, I said in the previous chapter that who worship the Lord with unflinching devotion can attain oneness with Brahman by knowledge obtained by God's grace. Without detachment, neither devotion nor true knowledge can be attained. And to expound the knowledge together with detachment, Bhagavan starts this chapter, where he says in the first 3 verses, that, see Arjuna, this material world is an upside down banyan tree. Upside down because it is not real. It is the reflection of the real one. So the jiva who is trapped in this material world, continuously jumping from one branch to another, trying to enjoy the fruits. And they are nourished, this tree, this whole tree, of which jiva is also a part. Because he is enjoying, he is entrapped. So he is, this tree is nourished by the three gunas. And this elusive tree has to be understood to destroy it with the sword of detachment, with strong determination. So we see the power of detachment is described in the first 3 verses. So jiva, in spite of having spiritual qualities, they're bound by the association of Prakriti, but can be freed by knowledge, which culminates in bhakti, and then attain spiritual swarupa to be eligible to go to that abode. That will be described in the next 3 verses. So how to get that knowledge and devotion? By detachment. And to get that detachment, we have to associate with the detached people who are already detached from this material world. They can show us the path to how to get detachment. Also the scriptures who can show us the ways of this detachment. And spiritual master who can guide us by all possible means, because he himself is a detached person, as well as he is always studying the valuable scriptures. So spiritual master associating with detached sadhus and the scriptures. These are the sources of getting detachment from. And once you are detached, you acquire certain qualities that is described in verse number 5. You are free from false prestige, false illusion, and false association. Then you start understanding the eternity of existence. You conquer material lust, and you go beyond the duality, and you become unbewildered. I mean the jiva. And thus, as Bhagavan mentioned, if you can cut this tree by the sword of detachment, you will be eligible to go the abode, the eternal abode from which no one returns. And that eternal abode is owned by the eternal person. And in the last verse of this section, that is verse 6, Bhagavan reveals that that abode is actually my abode, and I am the Supreme Person, the Dhamma Paramam. And yes, this is a beautiful abode where no external illumination, no external thing is required for the illumination. It is eternally illuminated place from where no one returns. So, and that is my abode. So in these 6 verses, this is the first section, Bhagavan gives this beautiful description of the Ashwatha Vriksha, the banyan tree, and the beautiful picture of his abode. And he also shows us the path to reach that abode. The step-by-step process. We have to find a spiritual master. We have to find good association with the detached people. We have to take shelter of the scriptures given by the Lord. Through them, we will get detachment. And with that detached mind, we can easily surrender to the Lord. That surrender will enhance our detachment even more, and then we will be completely purified and will be able to go to the abode, that eternal abode of our eternal Lord, our Supreme Lord, Purushottama Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय. So why do we surrender to the Vaishnavas, Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai? Because they are the detached Mahatmas. And if we take shelter of them and the knowledge that they have acquired, we will be able to find the abode of the Lord by their grace and by the grace of the Supreme. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for joining.